Would you believe that the average shopping basket of around 25 items has actually had to travel an astonishing 21,000 kilometres from its point of origin to your house? That's the equivalent of driving around Australia or 4,257 cars driving for an entire year. A great way to reduce your food miles is to buy local, and it doesn't get much more local than your own backyard. So today I'm going to be talking about the what, when, where and how of planting your own fruit, herbs and veggies. And as you can see here, a lot of veggies and most herbs can actually be grown quite successfully in pots. So even those of us with limited space can get in and have a grow. In terms of location, most veggies, herbs and fruit trees love the sun. They need about 4 to 6 hours of sun a day. In our southern hemisphere, this means a super spot on the northern or western side of the block. Northern is ideal because morning sun is best. It's far less harsh than the afternoon sun, so we want to harness as much of that as possible. On particularly hot or windy days, you can protect your plants with a shade cloth. This will stop windburn and prevent your plants from losing moisture. Plant in sheltered areas where practical. You can also plant living windbreaks in the form of suitable herbs or fruit trees. Where you live will determine what you can grow. Veggies and herbs tend to be robust and can be grown in most places, whereas fruit is more particular. For cooler climates, think fruit like apples, raspberries, citrus, peaches and pears. If you live further north, think tropical fruits like feijoa, bananas, pepino and avocados. Smaller gardens can get their Carmen Miranda fix by planting miniature or grafted fruit tree varieties in pots or by using vertical space. You can look at espaliering a lot of small trees like citrus, olives and many stone fruit along fences or walls. It's a fabulous way to cover up an ugly fence. Also, look at using your vertical space and covering them with climbers like grapes, kiwi fruit or my favourite, the passion fruit. So now you know where to plant your edibles, it's time to think about what to plant and when to plant it. Most of the plants in our edible patch are annuals, meaning they are either planted for warm or cool season growth. Generally speaking, cool season veggies are planted in autumn. Warm season vegetables are planted out in spring. So basically, it's a bit like putting money aside in October for the summer music festivals, or budgeting in autumn for the ski season in winter. You just have to plan one season ahead. So now we come to the how-to section of creating your veggie patch. Before you plant anything, test your soil with a pH testing kit, and this will give you an idea of how acidic or alkaline your soil is. If it's too much one way or the other, you'll need to rectify this with the appropriate soil conditioners. For the bulk of our edibles, we're aiming for a neutral pH. Edibles can be grown from either seed or seedling, with both methods having their pros and cons. When growing from seed, it may take a little longer to get going, but there's a much wider variety of tasty treats available, including old school and heirloom varieties. By planting out a few seeds at a time, you're able to extend your harvest for weeks. When choosing seed, grab open pollinated, non-hybridised seed. This means you can collect the seed at the end of the growing period and save it for next year. Read the instructions on the packet carefully for information on planting depth, watering and spacing. Planting from seedling will often give you about 6 weeks head start towards harvest time, but there can be some drawbacks. Organically grown seedlings are often tricky to find, as are heirloom and heritage varieties. While some seedlings like lettuce, Asian greens and most herbs transplant really easily, root vegetables like beetroots and carrots and climbers like peas and beans should only ever be grown from seed, as they suffer badly from transplant shock. When you plant your precious seeds, think about how you group them and who their neighbours will be. I usually organise my veggies according to how much water they need. Pot plants tend to need lots of water because they dry out really quickly, especially if they're in terracotta pots. Some herbs like thyme, oregano, marjoram and rosemary don't need much water, so they can all be put together. Veggies and herbs that are to be eaten raw or uncooked are best watered with rainwater, so send your grey water elsewhere. Many fruit trees are fine with grey water, just as long as they're not in pots. Irrigation is the key to keeping your edibles alive. Consider installing a rainwater tank or two just for your veggies. Subsurface irrigation via a drip line or similar is best, as it gets the water to where it's needed most, the roots. Most of your edibles need plenty of moisture, so check soil moisture regularly, mulch, and maintain a regular watering routine, in accordance with local restrictions. Good drainage is also important because most veggies and herbs despise wet feet. So get to know your soil and pamper it with organic matter, gypsum and a good forking if it has a bit of clay in it. If you're growing root veggies, ensure the soil is free of any debris like rocks and large sticks. Nothing deforms a root veggie faster than a couple of rocks. Add a locally sourced straw-based mulch to your patch or pots and mulch to a depth of about 6 centimetres. Mulching can prevent water loss, cut down unwanted competition and add a massive amount of nutrient to the soil as it breaks down. Providing your plants with a bit of a feed is a really good thing, especially if they're just getting established or they're coming into flower and fruit, like my eggplants. Look for organically based products that you can mix up into a liquid form. Think seaweed, fish, blood and bone, compost teas or wormweeds. These products are great because they help feed your plants really gently and nourish the soil. They won't force on growth like some of the synthetic fertilisers can. They can also help ward off plant pests and diseases. Pests are a fact of life, but in the edible patch, you want to control them as sustainably as possible. One way to do this is to plant annual flowers and fragrant herbs through the veggie patch, like I've done here with basil and tomato. What this does is increase the biodiversity as well as attracting beneficial insects, so it's a bit like living pest control. Look, if you've taken care of your soil before you've planted your veggies, you may not even need any chemicals in the patch at all. However, if you find you do need chemicals, there's heaps of low environmental impact products available. Just ask at your local garden centre. The beauty of growing your own fruit and veggies is that they taste better and are healthier for you because they haven't been doused in chemicals. They require less water, pesticides and packaging, plus you can turn your food miles into food meters, from the veggie patch to your table. Now this has just been an introduction to growing your own produce, but for more information, have a look at our website at sgaonline.org.au. Happy gardening!